And we are now live.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as you're able and join me for the welcoming of City Council playing the National Anthem and reading of the Invocation.
As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who've served our community and who are no longer with us so we can continue to do the work that we must in their memory. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Certainly. Councillor Sokoli.
Present.
Councillor Vanderstelt.
Present.
Councillor Utley.
Present.
Councillor Sless.
Present.
Councillor McCreary.
Here.
Councillor Martin.
Here.
Councillor Carpenter.
Present.
Councillor Antosky.
Here.
Councillor Van Tilborg.
Present.
Councillor Wall.
Present.
And Mayor Davis.
Thank you. So tonight we have assisting with us from the clerk's office, Tanya Daniels, who is the city clerk, and also assisting her is Melanie Figueredo. So rules of procedure, I'd like to remind members of council that we do have, and our staff and the viewing public, that we do have an electronic participation policy for virtual meetings. All staff and delegates are asked to please keep their video on and microphones off until requested by the moderator or members of council. All rules for delegations under the city's procedural bylaw continue to apply. Full corporate policy number 50, outlining the electronic virtual participation policies, is available online on the city's website for review. So we'll move to item 4, declarations of a conflict of interest. There are a number of members that are declaring conflicts. I believe I'll first go to Councillor Utley. Item 12.7.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. What was that?
All right, I believe you want to declare a conflict on item 12.1.7, the Rotary Centennial Waterworks Park Pavilion.
Yes, I do. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wall, item 12.3.2, the 106 Oak Street demolition.
Yep, the property is owned by an active client of mine.
Councillor Sokoli. Same item.
Yes, same item. My employer holds a pecuniary interest in that property.
All right, and I as well declaring a conflict on item 12.3.1, which is zoning bylaw amendment PZ0320, which is in reference to 9 Lloyd Street, a property that's within 200 meters of the property that my wife and I own. So members of council, are there any other pecuniary interests that anyone needs to declare regarding any items that are on tonight's agenda? Please physically raise your hand, either electronically or physically. Seeing no raised hands. All right, we'll move then into the separation of items in the committee reports for discussion purposes. So we already have a number of items that are separated primarily because of the conflicts that were declared. So 12.1.7, that's the Rotary Centennial Waterworks Park Pavilion renaming. That's Councilor Rutley's conflict. 12.3.1, zoning law amendment PZ03 29 Lloyd Street. That's my conflict, and that'll continue through into bylaws as well. 12.3.2, which is the notice of intention to demolish. We just heard the conflicts declared on that. 12.4.1, okay, well, we'll leave it at that. So those are the ones that are being separated for discussion because of conflicts. Councilor Carpenter, what would you like to separate it?
12.3.3, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Just in that. That would be the joint use agreement. Is that the one? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Councilor Van Tilburg.
12.5 and 12.4.
So 12.5, that's the closing the revolving door of justice resolution, and 12.5.
12.5.1 and 5.2, yes.
Right.
And 12.4.
12.4, that's the approval of the capital budget. So separated. Any other requests for separation for discussion purposes? Not seeing any other requests for separation. So Councilor Martin, I understand you've got the motion to approve the items that have not been separated. You can please read that. State your seconder.
I do, thank you. I move, seconded by Councilor McCurry, that all items contained in the committee reports, items 12.1 to 12.5, not separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
All right, so before I call the vote for that, Madam Clerk, would you please read out the title of the items that this vote will be subject to?
Certainly, from your Committee of the Whole Operations, 12.1.1 Vision and Long-Term Strategy Framework Solid Waste Program, 12.1.2 Feasibility of Electrifying the Fleet, Light Duty Vehicles, Corporate Fleet Electrification, 12.1.3 Road Dedicating Bylaw, Gillespie and B Crescent, 12.1.4 Strickland Avenue Road Dedication Bylaw, 12.1.5 KPMG Service Review Update, Community Grants and Community Foundation Funding, 12.1.6 City of Brantford Youth Strategy and Action Plan, 12.1.8 Noise Attenuation Wall along Corburn Street West. From Social Services, item 12.2.1 COVID-19 Social Services Relief Funding, 12.2.2 Childcare and Early Years Workforce Funding. From the Committee of the Whole Planning and Administration, item 12.3.4 Robinson Avenue Road Widening Dedication. From 12.3.5 Review of Former Parks Recreation Policy 0110 Special Event Policy. That is all the items.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
All items not separated for discussion purposes have carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Sicoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 6 and 7, there are no statutory public hearings or recognitions of achievement on the agenda for this evening. So move into item 8, proclamations, and we've got 2 proclamations on tonight's agenda. I believe Councilor Carpenter, would you please move both proclamations, state your seconder, and then thereafter would you also read proclamation 8.1, Random Act of Kindness Day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate that the following proclamations be approved. 8.1 is Random Act of Kindness Day, February 17th, 2022, and 8.2 Youth Sports Appreciation Week, March 12th to 19. And I'm speaking to 8.1. Oh, I guess are we going to call the vote on this first, or do you want me to read them first?
We'll read them out and then we'll call the vote.
Sure, okay. Whereas Brant Community Foundation, a charity serving Brantford, Brant County, Six Nations of the Grand River, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit Nations build community vitality. And whereas February 17, 2022 is being earmarked by Brant Community Foundation as a day to recognize kindness and humanity in our communities. And whereas Brant County Community Foundation is committed to encouraging random acts of kindness as a way to touch the lives of one another and make our world a better place. Now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaim February 17th, 2022 to be Random Act of Kindness Day and encourage all citizens to embrace kindness and pay acts of kindness forward as a key to achieving better community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Sluss, can you read the second proclamation, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Utley. Whereas the Brantford Sports Council is an organization that promotes the development and delivery of youth sport in our community and advocate for local sport organizations and promote sports tourism, a community partnership dedicated to the betterment of sport in Brantford. And whereas the Brantford Sports Council proudly supports some 18 youth sport organizations that provide quality sport experience to the children of Brantford and area. And whereas thousands of children are registered annually in a variety of youth sport programming in the city of Brantford each year. And whereas the youth sport organizations are supported by community residents who volunteer countless hours of their time in support of youth sport in our city. And whereas although the COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact across all elements of our community, the sport community in our city of Brantford remains positive, vibrant, and excited about the future of sport beyond the pandemic. And whereas the Brantford Sports Council is enthusiastically celebrating youth sport in our community in a safe manner and engaging the athletes, coaches, families, and community stakeholders with a variety of virtual opportunities to showcase their organizations and the importance of youth sport in our community. And whereas in recognition of this week, a limited number of members of the sports community will join Mayor Kevin Davis at Harmony Square on Friday, March 11th. That's Friday, March 11th, 2022 at 12 p.m. as he raises the flag to promote Youth Sport Week in Brantford and to acknowledge and honor the many volunteers and community stakeholders that support the sport programming offered in our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims the week of March 12th, 2022 as Youth Sport Appreciation Week in the City of Brantford.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sluss. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on the resolution that was actually put on the floor by Councillor Carpenter? Seconded by his ward mate.
All proclamations have carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Sikoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Sluss, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have now moved to presentations, delegations. We have one registered delegation for this evening. Prior to the hearing the delegation, of course, I'll, as we always do, remind those in the meeting of the following rules of decorum as set forth in the city's procedural bylaw that apply. One, no person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting of the materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids or necessary in connection with the presentation made to council. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak to any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in any conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. And no delegations are permitted to address the following matters: labor relations, employee negotiations, litigations either expected to proceed or that's currently proceeding, tenders, RFPs, or the procurement matters, or any other matters the subject of the open meeting exceptions in Municipal Act 2001 as amended. And so we do have Sandra Bayer, who's here to comment in respect to item 13.1, the CAO COVID-19 emergency update dated January 25th, 2022. Sandra, would you please come forward to speak to that item? And have you brought forward?
Hello.
Yes, I can. So Sandra, you're just coming in through audio rather than video?
Yes, I don't have a camera on my computer.
All right,
Strictly
so
audio.
if you could just confirm your identity, please, and then you can go on. You have up to 10 minutes to speak, inclusive of any questions from members of council.
Okay.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, and fellow participants, it is my pleasure to act as a delegate at this meeting. Meetings must be inclusive, transparent, accessible to all, and whenever possible, in person. Please consider allowing the citizens to make a choice by structuring hybrid meetings. This allows a choice between virtual or in-person attendance, depending on the comfort level of the individual. Consider the many sacrifices already made by the citizens of Ontario, Brantford, and Canada due to COVID-19. Sports venues and events and big box stores, as well as many of the actual retail outlets, are already open. January 31st will see a grand reopening of numerous businesses. The city of Brantford has been very careful in as much as it has taken very extensive precautions for meetings when we were already holding meetings in November. We had social distancing, attendees were tracked. They must show proof of identification as well as proof of vaccination. Masking and hand sanitizer, similar to the schools, were always taken as precautions at these council meetings. If it's good enough for unvaccinated,
Sandra, are you there?
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me on that's my cell phone I'm on now.
Oh, we can hear you much better.
Oh, okay. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. If it's good enough for unvaccinated children, it should be good enough for mature vaccinated adults to attend meetings. Children attend school every day. We attend maybe a 2-hour meeting one night a week, possibly 2. Please consider the benefits of in-person meetings, the sense of community, inclusion, transparency, and freedom to assemble peacefully. These are the very important features our municipal, provincial, and federal system of government guarantees for us. I ask you to consider moving back to hybrid meetings as quickly as possible with a goal of once more holding fully in-person meetings in the very near future. That is my presentation for this evening.
Well, thank you very much, Sandra. You may find some quite sympathetic to what you're saying, but we'll open the floor to questions. First up, Councilman Clerk.
Sandra, thanks for coming tonight. Good to sort of see you, if not at least hear you tonight. And thank you for participating in the appointment process some time ago. Would you be amenable to seeing us reopen in a hybrid fashion starting February the 1st?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councilor Martin and I will be bringing an amendment to that effect tonight.
Oh, that would be fabulous. That definitely would be much more reasonable than what we've had.
Okay. Councilor Wall.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Davis. Sandra, thank you for your delegation, and thank you for caring so much about this process. It's great, it's passionate, and I love it. I don't want to be rude, but I am legitimately curious. It seems that you're implying that we're making a decision to have these meetings in my office, or, you know, Councilor McCurry is sitting outside of City Hall right now. This isn't a decision we're just making. And I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit further on what you think the process is. We're being told we can't meet by people who are much smarter than we are, who are just taking into precaution the safety of staff, the safety of the members of council, the safety of the members of the public. It's not a, like, I don't want to sound defensive, but I don't want to be in my house right now. I want to be in council.
Councilor Wall, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm curious if she could elaborate. Sandra, sorry, I'm talking to Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Do you,
I understand.
Sandra, can you elaborate, please?
Okay, I feel that if it's good enough for the children, which are the future of our society and the future of our voters, to be attending school every day with the precautions that are being taken, in as much as they're very similar to the precautions that we're taking at a meeting that's being held for a couple of hours in an evening. I find that it's kind of that we think it's okay for the students to be in school, and yet we feel that we're concerned about ourselves, and we're fully vaccinated. The young children in the public schools, in the junior schools, are not even vaccinated, a lot of them, and yet they're still showing up every day. And if we think it's good enough for them, then I would think that we should consider the fact that we as adults can weigh the risks. And with a hybrid, you're getting an option. If you're not comfortable being in a meeting, then don't attend the meeting. But I did check with the Municipal Act to see what was the requirement. And it's not the Municipal Act that gives you this requirement. It's the state of emergency that was declared by the province of Ontario, and that was declared on July 22nd, 2022. And that gave you the right to have meetings become virtual, because Bill 68 says that it's not acceptable. Bill 68 of the Municipal Act says that it's not acceptable to have to have virtual meetings and count the people that attend the virtual meetings as being part of quorum. It's only through this amendment that was put forth in July of 2020 that we are able to declaring a state of emergency and also overriding it, so that anybody who attends virtually is considered a part of the quorum. But according to Bill 68, which is a part of the Municipal Act, technically you're not counted as a part of the quorum if you're attending the meeting virtually. I did this research this afternoon. I phoned the municipal board to get some more details and did some additional research. And that's where I found out about the state of emergency being the overriding factor. Now, according to everything that I've seen so far, the intention of Doug Ford and the government is to remove the state of emergency on March the 28th of this year, in which case it will go back to being a regular meeting, and your quorum would only be counted if you're attending a meeting. You can attend virtually, that's totally acceptable, but in order to be a part of the quorum, you have to be actually at the site of the meeting.
Sandra, sorry, Sandra, I've got a question for you. And we actually went to a hybrid in-person format in the fall when many other councils were not doing that. And I think we felt that it was a good experience. Now, what would you think, since the province seems to be following a model of 50% capacity through February, and then that date in March going to 100% capacity across the board, assuming there's no further deterioration, if we were to move to sort of a 50% capacity hybrid type meeting for the month of February, and then into the full hybrid, if that's what we want to do from March on, what would you think of that?
I would have no problem with that, because with the number of people that attend city council meeting, I would be there's only 2 or 3 of us that usually show up in council anyway.
No, and you have been a very
would not put you over the 50% level, I don't think.
Yeah, I think our capacity in here at 50% is about 50 people, but certainly you've been a very regular, devoted attendee since we moved to that. So any other questions for Sandra? Seeing none. Well, you're close to 10 minutes anyways. That was perfect. So thank you very much, Sandra. And we will actually be dealing with this early in the meeting because you came as a delegate, and that moves it up.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I will continue to listen and see what transpires in the balance of the meeting. Thank you so much for your attention and your consideration.
Thank you very much. So members, that's it for the delegation. We just had the one registered delegate. So we'll move to the clerk's report and communications. I believe, Councillor Sicoli, I think you're taking this motion to receive the clerk's report and communication. If you would please confirm that you've got a seconder and read out your resolution.
Yes, I'm going to help my ward mate save his voice. So moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Vanderstelt, that the clerk's report on communication for January 2022 be received.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on that?
Council. The clerk's report on communication has carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Secoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Thank you. So we'll move to item 11, which are the minutes listed on the agenda, approving those minutes. And of course, the minutes from the John Noble Home Committee of Management. So Councillor Wall, would you please move the motion, adopt the minutes listed and read it and state your seconder.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that the following minutes be adopted. 11.1, Special City Council. 11.2, Special City Council Private and Confidential. 11.3, Estimates Committee. 11.4, Estimates Committee. 11.5, Estimates Committee. 11.6, Estimates Committee, that the following minutes be received. 11.7, John Noble Home Committee of Management.
Thank you. So are there any errors and omissions anyone wants to raise in respect to the council minutes or any discussion on the John Noble Home Committee of Management meeting minutes? Seeing no raised hands, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on?
All minutes have carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Secoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Good. Now we'll move to item 12, which is dealing with the committee reports that have been separated for discussion. And since we did have a delegation regarding 13.1, the CEO's report, we'll deal with that one first, following our usual procedure. Yeah, so first we'll dispose of that item, but I need a mover and a seconder. Can you please read the item? So I think Councillor Antosky, you're lined up for this.
I am. Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Carpenter. I think I can't see him. So that report 2022-35 titled CAO COVID-19 Emergency Update, January 25th, 22nd, be received, and that the clerk be directed to resume council and its committee hybrid operation commencement phased approach, phase 1, effective March 1st, committee of the whole operations, and that the Director of Economic Development and Tourism be authorized to execute the 2021 amending agreement to the museum funding agreement with Brant Historical Society for the provision of the grant in the maximum eligible amount set out in section 9 of report 2020-207, subject to approval as to form by the city solicitor or designate. And D, that the Director of Economic Development and Tourism be authorized to execute the 2021 amending agreement to the museum funding agreement with Glenhurst Art Gallery of Brant for the provision of the grant in the maximum eligible amount set out in section 9 of report 2019-264, subject to approval as to form by the city solicitor and designate. And E, that the Community Cultural Investment Program annual operating grants terms of eligibility be waived as they relate to the 2022 eligible grant calculation only for core operating and annual operating grants.
And Councillor Carpenter, I couldn't see you, but did you agree to second that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. So we each have 2 4-minute speaking opportunities since this was not dealt with at committee of the whole. So I'll go to Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, it's my intent to move an amendment. I'll do that now or when you wish.
Well, why don't you move it now? But people still have speaking opportunities after that. So speak
Thank
to
you.
other parts of the resolution.
Sure. Second, it pertains to item B, Mayor. The amendment would be that City Council adopt a 50% cap hybrid meeting schedule commencing February the 1st.
So Madam Clerk, do you have that? So I think that the intent is moving to the in-person hybrid, with the in-person being limited to 50%. So essentially that'd be one ward councillor.
That is correct.
Yeah. So did you intend by that, Councillor McCurry, that the 50% would be the members of council in attendance, would essentially be one member per each ward, and the mayor, I guess, and 50% attendance capacity in the public viewing area, which I think is required by regulation in the event?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor. And the 50% would be subject to the desires of each and every individual councillor. If there aren't 5 that wish to attend, that's up to individual councillors, but 5 would be the maximum.
Yeah, actually, the Madam Clerk asked me, so do you want it to be 50% for the entire room, which I guess it is. Yeah, it's legally what it is. But I think I'm interpreting your intent to mean that it would be 50% for the room in terms of the public attending and staff, and that for the members of council, the sort of same 50% rule would apply, which would be, I think, about a maximum of 6 of us.
Correct. And the 50% to the crowd, of course, would apply to the 6-foot distancing as well, whatever the numbers turn out to be, Mayor.
The other requirements would remain in place as well. All right, so I think I understand that, and that's seconded by Councillor Martin. So any discussion on the amendment? Councillor Sluss, did you?
No, I was actually to the item itself, not the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I'll take you then after we deal with the amendment. Councillor Van Tilburg.
Yeah, what were the requirements that we had in November just prior?
You mean prior to us going to hybrid?
Yeah, and when we were in hybrid, was it similar to what's proposed right now, or was it a little more or a little less?
Well, we had 2 versions. One we're doing tonight, which is the chair would come in person, and then for a period of time there we had just totally virtual with everybody coming in virtually. So.
Oh, I'm just saying in November, I thought we had opened it up. I didn't know what the public capacity was in November. That's what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
if I recall, I think it was about 30%.
Okay.
So through to the mayor, to answer the councillor's question, our capacity limit when we first initiated hybrids would have been about 60 individuals in attendance, which includes both council members, staff, and members of the public, security, cleaning staff. It's evaluated based on the room. So in November, the regulations at that point would have had us about 60. The regulations right now will have us at 50 for the room.
All right, thank you. I just wanted that to be clear. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I think, Madam Clerk, you're telling us the total number of people that can be in the room under what will be the provincial regulations as of next week will be 50.
Through to you, Mayor, that's correct. So the regulations that come into effect on the 31st would mean that 50% we can have in the capacity for this room, which hits at 50 individuals.
Right, okay, thanks. So to the amendment, Councillor Wall. Sorry, Councillor Van Tilburg, did you have anything else?
No, that's the answer.
Yeah.
I was looking
okay,
for
Councillor Wall.
Leave it to me to go into the finer details of things. I'm confused, and straight up say it. Does this mean I have a lot of questions. Does this mean that we can't have more than 50% then? What if all 11 of us wanted to? Is this say we can't? And how long is this in effect for? Is this just until? I don't understand the nature of it. I think it's just saying like we want to come back, but the numbers just don't add up to me. And at the end of the day, like, what happens if 50% don't show up? Like, I feel like hopefully Councilor McCurry during another speaking opportunity could provide some more clarity, because as somebody used to say, I don't know how I'm going to vote on this.
Yeah, I would say this as chair, I'm trying to interpret it as well. And I think what it means is that, well, in terms of how long it would last, we've been following a rule of at the end of each month, we get the CEO's report, and it could be changed at the end of February, depending on what the province has in store for us in the month of March. So it'll be subject to that review that we do at the end of each month when we get the CEO's report. So far as the capacity of the room, I think it's basically provincial regs, it's 50%. And we do have the spacing issue for members of council, but that's i.e. 6 feet apart if everybody wanted to show up. But that is addressed through the plastic screens. I don't know, Madam Clerk, how would you
Before my
interpret this?
opportunity ends, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, Mayor Davis, can I just see the wording on the screen, please?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. 'Cause that does clarify it.
Then my question will be this, and I don't even know who I'm asking it to. It says, be amended to have a commencement date of February 1st for hybrid meetings with a 50% council member attendance and 50, okay. What happens if 50% of council doesn't show up? Like, it's implying that we have to have 50% of council show up.
No, no, as a chair, that's a maximum capacity. So if everybody wanted to come in virtually, you can still come in virtually.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right, so Councillor Sledge, did you want to speak to this now? Or do you want to be still holding for the? Just have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, after Councillor Waltz spoke, I'm confused now. So yes, I'd like to speak to it. So we can have a maximum of 50% show up in person. That's the regulation by the province. And I understand that correctly, correct? And
No, I think the Madam Clerk told us it's 50% of the capacity of the room.
right.
This resolution defines it, and it says 50%, as I read it, on the members of council, and 50% in terms of the entire room.
Okay, if 40% of council shows up one evening for the meeting, is that meeting canceled for lack of quorum?
No, well, because it's if you come in virtually, look, Madam Clerk, you correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of the provincial legislation is now you count for quorum whether you're here virtually or whether you're here in person. Councillor McCreary's amendment says that the cap of those who come in person would be set at 50%. So it doesn't have to be 50%. You could still have 10 members at home virtually and one coming in as chair. So.
Okay, and this stays in effect then, or the intent is to stay in effect until the province changes the rules, is that?
Well, until we change it. And we do review it at the end of each month. And normally what we do is if the province changes the rules, then our history has been, we will then consider changing, or depending on what staff recommend to us.
Okay, having said that, then should the resolution be quantified that this shall be reviewed at the end of each calendar month?
Well, what you could do is, if I can suggest as chair to get this moving along, I mean, why don't we do what we've done, what we did in December, just say it, maybe there'll be a friendly amendment, Councillor McCurry, that just says this will be reviewed at the council meeting in February.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Does that work for you, Councillor McCurry and Councillor Martin?
Mayor, everything we do is in place until we change it.
All right. But to satisfy the members who would like to know when this will be reviewed, would you add that in as a friendly amendment?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So now we'll go to Councillor Martin on the amendment.
Thank you. And just another minor adjustment to this. If we put in the word maximum ahead of 50%, I think that clears it up for people in that we could have only yourself, the same as we do tonight, or we could have 5 members of council, yourself, and the other 5 attending virtually, or any number below 5 councillors in chambers. It doesn't have to be 50%, but 50% is the maximum. So I hope that clears it up for people. And of course, as the province changes the rules and around COVID, we'll certainly be reviewing this. And when we can go back to a full meeting, full hybrid, then I look forward to the opportunity to have as many people in council chambers as wish to attend. And those that wish not to, then that's their choice.
Councillor McCurry, would you agree as a friendly amendment suggested by your seconder that that word maximum be in the amendment?
Is there a friendlier word than friendly? Because I think it's, like superlatively friendly, Mayor. Yes,
Okay.
that's a yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right, Councillor Scully. For the amendment.
Thank you. Forgive my ignorance. Have we ever limited the capacity of council members coming into chambers previously?
Yep.
We have? Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, I mean, we did in terms of, depending on what the government regulations were.
Okay. I'm very happy to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Antosky.
Just a bit of a devil's advocate thing. I don't think we'll run into a problem, but just because of the way that it's written, if let's say 8 of us are adamant and wanting to come in, do the clerks just decide in terms of who responds first come, first serve type of thing?
No,
How
I
does-
think it would be up to us to resolve that for them. I think we
Okay,
could
so
be-
it wouldn't be in the order that they respond, saying that they're coming in. I would hope that we could, I'm just saying it's not written that way, so.
My suggestion, Councillor Antosky, is the ultimate authority in how things run lies with the chair, right?
Okay.
And so if we have a mass onslaught of councillors, the chair will have to negotiate an arrangement with those who attended to say you can't all come in. I'm sure we could work it out.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McCrory.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Yes, so I think if we all understand correctly, we'd have a max of 50% capacity in the room, a max of 50% capacity around the horseshoe. There would be no striped shirts on the staff. They wouldn't get to referee and decide who comes and goes. That would be up to all of us. However, you may have, those of you who are watching from home and here, may have noticed that the chair and the vice, sorry, not the chair and the vice chair, the mover and the seconder are most amenable to having councillors make this their own resolution, their own amendment. If a member of council, I'm looking at you, Councillor Antosky, wanted to move an amendment to not cap the percentage of councillors, I'd be perfectly okay with that, as long as the capacity of the room is 50%.
We don't have that on the floor. You've put out your invite. Councillor Sicoli for a second time to the resolution.
I would like to suggest a friendly amendment to remove the cap for council members. An amendment to the amendment, if you will.
Well, first of all, you made the suggestion, so counts the mover, Councillor McCrory and Councillor Martin. You prepared to accept that?
That's a big okie dokie.
Okay. So if we could just have the resolution up, I think what it reads now is we just read we move to in-person hybrid with an overall limit of 50% for the room.
Sorry, through to the mayor, if I could, even removing the 50% of the room, unless council wanted to keep it in place and monitor it in advance of the 22nd, the rules are changing every 21 days. So we may actually have the ability to expand in-person attendance, but unless you wanted to keep it at 50% longer than what the province rules would apply.
Well, 50% has a lot of people in here, and if we get stuck because the meeting of February, the council meeting in February, I think we can correct it that night, and I think we can live with it for one night. But anyways, if Madam Clerk, would you mind pulling up the resolution just so we can confirm how it's going to read? Which I think it just means in-person hybrid with an overall room capacity of 50%. Yeah, and the 50% attendance, that means applies to just the entire room, not to members of council. Yeah. Okay, so Councillor McCrory and Councillor Martin, you're okay with this? Councillor Sicoli suggested it. Just have to acknowledge.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yes.
All right. I think it's now clear. So as many members of council can attend as they wish. So any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on the amendment?
Councillor Wall, just waiting on your response. Thank you. The amendment for item 13.1 being the CAO COVID-19 emergency update has carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Sicoli, Vanderstel, Utley, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
All right, so I'll apologize to the viewer, that got a little messy, but we got to an end result. So Councillor Celeste, you did say you wanted to speak to the other part of
Yeah,
the
to the
resolution.
amended. Yes, I guess I'd like some clarity from the clerk, because I thought we had approved a policy that going forward in perpetuity, we had the option of a hybrid system that a member, if I'll use you as an example, Mr. Mayor, if you're at AMO Business in Ottawa, but that's a council night or a committee of the whole night, you could log in and participate in that at any time. 3 years from now, you could do that, according to our policy, was my understanding. But this evening, I heard from the delegation that once the province removes the emergency clause or whatever they've declared, that no longer is in play. And I guess I'd like clarity from the clerk. Is that true, or who's right?
Through the mayor to Councillor Celeste. So the Municipal Act was permanently changed to have quorum count both for in-person attendees or virtual attendees. So while previous to the pandemic, it was only for in-person where you would count quorum, they permanently amended the act to permit attendance in either format. Council then in September passed the electronic participation policy, which I believe is what you're referencing, which allows for participation of members where there is an electronic meeting in play to participate either in person or virtually. And in either case, they count for quorum and they can vote and participate as any other member in person or virtual.
So having heard that, then am I safe in assuming that the delegation was misspoken or confused? Is that was not the correct version of the law?
Through the mayor to the Councillor Celeste, certainly I couldn't say for fact what the delegate may have been reading. It could have been an old bulletin, but I can tell you for certain that the act has been permanently changed to permit that.
I appreciate that. Thanks for that clarity. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for doing that, Councillor Celeste. That was my understanding as well. So any other discussion regarding report? No, not seeing any. Madam Clerk, could you please take the vote?
Councillor Wall, just waiting for your input.
Sorry, yes.
I'll mark you accordingly. Item 13.1 being the CAO COVID-19 emergency update as amended has carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Sicoli, Vanderstel, Utley, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk, for helping us through that. And so we'll now move on to the balance of the items that were separated. The committee reports. Councillor Utley, I understand you've got the motion to get those on the floor. If you could please read out your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Celeste, that all items in the committee reports, items 12.1 to 12.5, separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
Thank you. So the first one we'll deal with is 12.1.7. That's the Rotary Centennial Waterworks Park Pavilion renaming, separated because of Councillor Utley's declared conflict. Any discussion regarding that? Seeing no raised hands, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Item 12.1.7 being Rotary Centennial Waterworks Park Pavilion, naming the Margot and Paul Wilmson Family Pavilion, has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Sicoli, Vanderstel, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Utley's conflict.
We'll now move to the next one that was separated. That's 12.3.1, which is the zoning bylaw amendment for 9 Lloyd Street. And Councillor Martin, if you please take over the chair since it's being separated because of my declared conflict.
Certainly. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Item 12.3.1 being the zoning bylaw amendment per VZ-03-29 Lloyd Street has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Sikoli, Vanderstel, Utley, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski Van Tilburg, Wall, noting Mayor Davis conflict.
And Mayor Davis, I'll pass the chair back to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. So we'll move then to the next item that was separated for conflict, which is 12.3.2, which is the demolition of the accessory structure at 106 Oak Street. So any discussion on that item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on that?
Just want to check, Councillor Vanderstel appears to have either blocked the camera or changed. I just want to make sure he's not present in the meeting. Hearing no response. Item 12.3.2, notice of intention to demolish an accessory structure at 106 Oak Street, which is listed as a property in the City of Brantford Heritage Register, carried on a recorded vote of 8-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Utley, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski Van Tilburg, Mayor Davis, noting Councillors Wall and Sikoli conflict.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item, which is 12.3.3, the deferral of the joint use agreement with Grand Area District School Board. Councillor Carpenter, you asked this to be separated.
Yes, I just want to talk to the staff. My understanding is that from a school board trustee, that this has not been before the school board trustees in any way, shape, or form. And this is coming from a trustee that called me yesterday. So can staff confirm that there's been some consultation with the trustees of the school boards?
Yeah, good evening, Aaron Wallace, Director of Community Programs. So our understanding is it went in front of their committee of the whole on January the 10th. But I can, at a higher level, certainly we've been in contact with their staff and we know that communication between staff and trustee is happening, but we do believe formally it was in front of their committee on the 10th.
Yeah, can you verify it when it comes back, please? Thank you very much.
Any other discussion on this item? Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you. My understanding was that's the reason for the referral on this was because it had not been to the trustees for final approval. And there was some speculation that there might be some changes to the agreement. So it was requested by staff that this item be referred, and that's why it's a referral here tonight.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, Aaron.
Sorry, Mayor Davis. Through the chair, that's correct. We understand it went to their committee of the whole on the 10th. Subsequent to that meeting, trustees did have questions for their staff. And so us thinking perhaps it wouldn't be ratified by the board at the end of this month, we did ask for the referral to have some more time to have those discussions and bring it back again.
Seeing no further, sorry, Councillor Carpenter.
I just want to.
Actually, we just, it's just one speaking opportunity. Sorry, I'm sorry, Councillor Carpenter.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that the trustee had up in contact.
Okay, so I'll call the vote, Madam Clerk, on this item.
Item 12.3.3, joint use agreement with the Grand Area District School Board and update regarding negotiations with the Brant, Haldeman, Norfolk District School Board have carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Sikoli, Utley, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
We'll move to the next item, which is 12.4, the Estimates Committee. 12.4.1, Councillor Van Tilburg, you asked for this to be separated.
Yes, I did. I just want my memory jogged again. The New City Hall, the refacing work, the infrastructure work going on the face. What is the cost of that again?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that project was one that was previously approved by council through a previous budget and wasn't part of the budget that's being adopted this evening. But I can confirm that in an email, if that's okay.
We don't have. I'm sure that had come up in the estimates portion when we were discussing the dollar figure. So if it was in, are you saying that that doesn't affect the budget? It still does it not? Even if it was approved?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Van Tilburg, my recollection is that that project was put before the estimates committee last year. So that project was funded from last year's capital budget and is currently just a work in progress. It didn't come through.
Is there any future work on that? Because I just don't remember the refacing part. Is there any future work on that with regards to the refacing?
I don't believe so, but there's public works staff that may be able to provide input here as well.
Through you, Mayor Davis, sorry, Joel, for not jumping on. Rick is taking that number just behind the scenes, so I'm hoping we'll have something like that, some answer shortly, but I believe it was 365,000 in the budget for refacing. Prior approval was 120,000.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Yeah, I wanted to say two things. Let me hit the timer for myself. Yeah, it really wasn't reported that well, but I think there are two things that are of particular interest in this capital budget, but maybe of particular interest to members of the community. And one had to do with green bins. And previously our goal was to bring the green bins in 2025. And there is a desire, we may see it in the operating budget, to move it up to 2023. So it'd be the first order of business for the new council. And what's really, I think, very encouraging is to make sure that the next council has the right tools to do the right job when it comes to green bins. There is built into this capital budget this year, 1.7 million for the purchase of the tools that will be needed to set the stage for the next council to bring in green bins a lot earlier. That would be the containers, the bins, expanding the landfill transfer facility to be able to accommodate the green organics that'll be coming in. Really a really great example, I think, of one council trying to set the stage for the success of the following council by making sure that the stage is set in terms of having the tools and equipment to be able to do the job, and try and do all of that in 1 year, both the putting the tools in place, the equipment, the capital required, and the operating cost. That'd be we know from past experience, it's hard to do that. The other thing is, I wanted to say about Public Works. First of all, I wanted to note a congratulations to our Public Works Operations Department, Mark Jacqueline, Mike Christian, and of course, the overall director, Indy Hans. I think they did a great job in the dealing with the snow we had last week. I wanted to thank them for that. I think that was a job well done, and an example of what happens when you have good leaders, a clear vision, and creating a commitment to excellence and improvement. But why am I saying that? Because this budget deals with, when I'm saying the capital budget, begins the work of rebuilding our operations, public works, maintenance yard up there behind the Gunners Club under a lab. To date, kind of an out of sight, out of mind facility, but a critical facility to the smooth operation of many of the services that members of our community rely upon, and a facility that probably coming out of the last time it was really significantly renovated was probably in the 50s or 60s, woefully inadequate. So this budget, kind of similar to the green bins, sets the stage, begins making that development of that facility top of mind, not out of mind. I think that's very important to operations and public works staff. So this year, about $4.5 million allocated to begin the design work. And And there's a lot that is done in those operation yards, from traffic operations, administrative office, all the material we use on roads being stored there, huge barns for our equipment and maintenance of our equipment, and keeping an inventory of all the items that our public works staff use. And they've outgrown this facility long ago. And so I'm very pleased that, I'm particularly pleased for our public works staff that we're following through on a commitment we gave them, and will allow the next council to carry forward and do that as probably the most significant in terms of city buildings project for the next council, similar to what this building, the new city hall, was for this council. And of course, the groundwork for that was done and laid by the prior council. So I think that's very exciting and worthy of some note. So any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote on this?
Item 12.4.1, approval of 2022 capital budget and other recommendations and direction provided during the 2022 capital budget process is carried on a recorded vote of 9-1. Those voting in favor, Councilors Sicoli, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councilor Van Tilburg.
Councilor Van Tilburg, you asked for the last two items to be separated. Coming up from the downtown.
I did indeed, Mayor Davis, and was so that you could possibly step away from the chair and move one of the items.
Yeah, they're both on the floor.
At the same?
Yeah, so we don't have to actually move them, but probably if I'm going to speak first, which I wouldn't mind doing.
Certainly, that was the intent, Mayor Davis, was to get that to you, and I didn't know if that was possible as you as chair and us as councilors.
Councilor Martin, would you mind sharing this part? I mean, I am taking a rather active role as the task force chair, and I think it's appropriate if you chair it.
Certainly,
yeah.
I accept the chair, and you have the floor.
I hope that didn't use my speaking opportunity.
To be determined by our acting chair. So in particular, I wanted to speak to 12.51, Mr. Chair, called the resolution titled Closing the Revolving Door of Justice. And this resolution comes to us from the Downtown Improvement Task Force as a short-term action item that the task force is asking be acted on immediately. And both the resolutions are targeted an issue. It's a citywide concern, and that's the increase in property and drug-related crime. And the issue citywide affects many residents, in fact, including myself. I've had my vehicle broken into 3 times as recently as Boxing Day, where the rear window of one of my truck windows was smashed in. Not 2 years ago, I was struggling with someone who broke into my garage and trying to take a bike, and was wrestling with them about 2 years ago. And I'm happy to say they didn't leave my garage with my bike. But, police services have told us they've given us, we've heard from the chief, the 10 most prolific offenders. And what you see when you look at that is as many as 100 outstanding charges, many of them for drug and gun and property theft related crimes. But of greatest concern is that many of the charges that will be repeated with these top 10 offenders have been bail offenses. So they've been released previously on bail, not held in custody pending trial, and then repeatedly breaching bail terms, but not being held or retained in custody. And in fact, recently an Ontario court judge in one of her decisions even mentioned that a person came before for final sentencing, and she questioned why this person had been released on bail. And so, what is the problem, and how are we going about trying to solve it, or at least contribute to the solution? That's what the task force has been looking at with the assistance of 2 experts, Police Chief Davis, who has a lot of on-the-ground experience, and our new MP, Larry Brock, his 30 years experience as a Crown prosecutor, very important. So what we agreed to do is, one, a message to the local justices of the peace. They deal with about 95% of the bail decisions. And the message to them is that we're asking they consider the impact of their decisions, what that has on residents. And so far as they're allowed by the rules that they operate under, hoping that they would consider giving priority to protecting city residents in their bail decisions, but of course operating under the rules they have. However, you know what, their hands are to a large extent tied, and they're tied by the rules they operate under, which come to them from the Charter of Rights and court decisions that interpret that, and also the bail provisions that are passed and brought into place by the federal government. And it's a real concern to me and other members of the task force that we have a federal government that has relaxed some of the bail rules and is in fact now bringing forward provision to lessen the penalty in respect to certain gun crimes. And if we believe there is a need to in fact do the opposite of the task force, and that is to tighten up the rules that apply, particularly in respect to bail. And that's what this resolution does. It's not a general resolution. It actually has within it a very specific recommendation we're making to the federal government, and really coming from Larry Brock and Chief Davis. And what it is, it has to do with sureties. And sureties are where the system in bail, instead of keeping someone in custody, you appoint someone, a surety, a person, and you say this person is being released into your care. Usually they have to live with their surety. And the surety is then responsible for overseeing the person's behavior, making sure they obey rules that are imposed, like curfews, and not associating with other people with criminal records. And the problem has been that that surety system is used over and over again, as we were told by Mr. Larry Brock. And it's brought into a situation where that the surety system is not working as well as it should. And so what this resolution is asking the federal government is please tighten up those rules, reduce the circumstances under which sureties can be used, and certainly don't allow them to be used repeatedly when they haven't worked with somebody. And the other point that MVP Larry Brock made to us was there aren't the consequences for a surety that doesn't properly oversee the person that's accused aren't really built into the system to the effect that they should be. And so the idea is to strengthen the penalties that would apply to sureties who don't do what they are supposed to do, which is oversee somebody who has been released from custody. Will this solve the problem? No, it's not the magic solution. However, we're hoping other cities will take this up, and that the federal government will, in response to a resolution like this that is very specific and makes a specific request, will at least partially begin closing the revolving door of justice, which is what people are referring to, this revolving door of justice. So I'm hoping council will support this to send, it's an informed message to the federal government and tells them what it is that and how we'd like the bail reform or bail act strengthened, so that more people, especially repeat offenders, are held in custody pending an outcome of their charges. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councilor Tilburg, you've already had your speaking opportunity, but because you didn't really use it, I'll let you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're doing an amazing job. In the first term that I served, I literally had no questions regarding crime happening in the community until near the end of that term, and we started seeing a trend happen. And then my phone started ringing. I'm sure as Councillor Wall joined on board, his phone was ringing. And quite frankly, it hasn't stopped to this day. And you have to wonder what's wrong. Why are city councillors getting phone calls regarding criminal activity when that normally would go to the police, be handled in the court system, people would go to jail, things like that. But our phones are calling because people are being let down. And I got to thank Police Chief Davis, Mayor Davis, Larry Brock, and the other lawyers who were on the downtown task force, because they're finding the missing pieces on the events that we see happening to us every single day. And they're not going away. And we're watching this accumulate day by day as the failure of our court system to protect the citizens is becoming apparent to each and every person, particularly in the downtown and the ward. And it's affecting our economy, it's affecting our safety and our security. And if you don't have safety and security, you don't have nothing. So what's bothering me about this is that when people are going on bail, it's almost like saying they're not being put anywhere. They're being put into the homes. And it's like telling somebody you're grounded. Only right now they're being grounded while their parents are away on a vacation. Because with the surety, there's nobody collecting the money. There's nobody holding the money. See, I didn't know this before because I'm not a criminal. I'm not a person that's been posting bail for criminals or people accused of a crime. So where is We understand we have to protect people's rights accused of something, but where is the responsibility on the other side? Where are those that have to come out there and say, okay, you have been committing a crime while under bail. The person who put the bail up loses some money. Somebody has to be at risk here, because the only people at risk are the citizens in our ward, citizens in our community. We've been going the wrong way. I was gobsmacked when I heard something that must be 20, 25 years ago, when domestic abuse, they were trying to tackle it on hard. And if you were involved in a domestic abuse, they were going to make sure that you weren't going to be able to harass your victim. I had no idea with these certain bail reforms, those things are gone. If a person's just put back out into the community right away, when we're talking about the revolving door, it literally is. The amount of work that the police put into going to find somebody that does something bad, you know, they didn't catch every single crime. They've caught one thing, they have to prove it. All that work, and then the next thing you know, the person is put back in the community, and we have been aware that that person is committing crimes right away, within hours, and that's a revolving door. So the mayor is absolutely correct. This isn't the big picture of the sentencing. This is literally, what are you doing when you've caught the person, and you have to have a responsible avenue. They should be there should be a choice of whether they're put into to a holding cell or whether they're put back in the community. But if they're put back in the community, put some responsibility on the people. The person that's pointing up the money. What if the bail was $500,000? I said, yeah, $500,000. The guy skips and I don't have to pay a nickel. There's not a mechanism to collect. That mechanism can provide the money that our court systems need in order to operate efficiently, in order to provide places for people to go, whatever help they need. And to the point that the mayor was speaking about, the individual was suffering, that he spoke about in the article, was suffering from addiction problems, and said, I could have been helped if I wasn't put back on bail. The judge agreed and is feeling the exact same way and wondering what are our judicial officers doing? Well, actually, they're doing what they're guideline to do. And that's what's failing us. And so I want everybody, see, I didn't know what to tell people. We all know there's more crime. There is something here that if you're watching and you've been affected by crime, that you can actually call your MP and your MPP to be specific on bail reform and sureties, and that's a start. You don't just have to say, hey, I've been robbed. We've all been robbed. They just say, yeah, crime's out there. You say, you call up your MP, you call them all up and say, I want bail reform, and I want someone responsible to start to protect my community. And if this goes, at least perhaps the calls to counselors like myself and Councillor Wall could go down. And I thank the Downtown Task Force, the BIA, for putting us in this direction. And I want to thank all the legal people for their help in this.
Okay, Councillor Antosky, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Martin. Just a quick and short statement to acknowledge that this is something that has been talked about at FCM. Communities are feeling this quite significantly across the province. I have just fired off an email to one of the policy advisors at FCM to see where we're at and what we have, and I'll make sure that any of that paperwork is provided to you, Mayor Davis, and to the rest of you working on this. Thank you very much for this.
Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, for years we've been trying to, really been banging our heads against the wall with cleaning up some of the criminal activities in our community. And no matter what we do or what we've done, it has no effect hardly at all. And that's the frustrating thing. And we bear the brunt of our citizens when the law isn't being upheld or the perpetrators are not being punished in a way or incarcerated as they should be. So I just want to commend Mayor Davis, everyone on council, Chief Davis, MP Brock, for highlighting this issue and taking it up to higher levels to get some action. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Councillor Van Tilburg for his always very eloquent message and passionate message with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wall, you have the floor.
Thanks, Chair Martin. If you really want to hear what I have to say about this, watch some of those task force meetings. I'm not going to try to go on a lecture here today, but I think simply put, enough is enough. Enough is enough. The people of this community are fed up. They're fed up with this problem being ignored, and they're fed up with it getting worse. For years, almost my entire life, funding for mental health, funding for rehab, funding and support for after-school programs, funding and support for teachers, funding and support for social workers, funding and support for doctors, for the medical field. People aren't getting the help they need. And we're wondering why we're dealing with so many problems. It breaks my heart. You know, I grew up in Brantford. I had a tough life when I was younger. I struggled, and I watched friends struggle. I watched good people I loved and care about get let down by the system and either lose their life to drugs, lose their life to addiction, lose their life to crime. And they never got back on track. They never got their life back on track. They suffered, their families suffered. People in our community right now are suffering because of a broken system. I'm usually Mr. Rose-colored glasses. I am 100% optimistic that things are going to get better. But until we have more accountability, because I can tell you my accountability radar is on check. I can't go 15 minutes without a tag on social media or a phone call or an email or a text message asking me, Councillor Wall, you're sure a lot of talk. Where's your action? I can't single-handedly stop what's going on in the community. Collectively, though, we can be a voice for the people we represent and say enough is enough, because this has gone on for far too long. But I don't want anybody watching or listening or following along to think that we can police our way out of this, because that is just one part of how we're going to move forward. We need to treat human beings like human beings with respect and take care of them mentally, physically, with love and compassion and understanding that even if you made a mistake, even if you're addicted, even if you're suffering from something that somebody else can't understand, that we care about you and we want you to succeed and be prosperous. You can't punish your way out of this. And I'm sorry. I hope that anybody who's watching or listening or following along on this, please add your voice to ours, because the only way we're going to get through this is together, collectively, as a community, looking out for one another. We're in this together, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McCurry, you have the floor.
Chair, thank you. And let me reiterate what a wonderful job my ward mate is doing tonight, filling in for the mayor as he speaks at length. Councillor Wall has eloquently summarized, I believe, this issue in 4 minutes. And I hope folks at home were perhaps employing stenographers to write that down, because what he said was this issue in a nutshell. He summarized everything that's before us, and he speaks to the the frustration that everybody feels, and the anger that some folks are demonstrating by contacting him is misplaced. So that's my commentary, Councillor Martin. I want to thank Councillor Wall for his sage and wise words on this issue. I would like to ask the mover and seconder if they would assent to having a copy of this also provided to the Brantford Police Services Board.
Thank you. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't repeat what everyone else said, but I noticed that most of the resolutions directed at the federal government, but I believe the provincial government has a role to play in here. I mean, is it not the provincial government that has initiated the catch and release policing program in the province of Ontario? I believe it is. In fact, the chief, when he was before us, was saying that this catch and release program has got, one individual was in there 30 times. Well, actually, there was 30 individuals committing all the crime, one of them being female, but some of them had over 200 charges on them under the catch and release, and the courts have yet to address the issues of them. And I believe those are provincial courts. So I'm just wondering if we're going to actually ask the province to step forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just get a few comments in here. The most frustrating has got to be for some of the police officers that catch somebody at the start of their shift, arrest them, and before their shift's even over, they're back on the street. And sometimes they're catching them again, doing the same thing all over again. It's got to be very frustrating for our police officers when that situation happens. The other thing that needs to be addressed is we need to take a serious look at the whole methadone clinic situation. It doesn't seem to be working. It's just a moneymaker for some individuals, and it's not giving the kind of help that the people need that are addicted to the drugs that they prefer to have. And something needs to change there, because I think it's the number of methadone clinics we have in this community that's attracting some people to this community that are less desirable. So, Mayor Davis, you spoke on this already. We have one speaking opportunity.
Point of order. There's two.
What's your point of order?
There's two speaking opportunities. This wasn't dealt with the committee of the whole. It's under rules. It's 2 4 minutes.
Correct. You have the floor again.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Mr. Chair. You were doing a wonderful job until that point. But yeah, in reference to the comment of Councillor Carpenter, the province, it is a two-parter, and there is a second part of the resolution that's 1512.5.2. It's really a package, and it's a resolution directed to the province in the area that is their responsibility, which is the administration of justice. But it's the federal government does set out the rules, and it's the rules we need changed. That's really critical, because Councillor Martin reminded me of an officer that I spoke to, and it is demoralizing for our police officers. They work really hard. They apprehend people that they've arrested, 10 times before, and many times the offenders just laugh at them and say, "Hey, we're going to be released before you finish your shift." And it's insulting to our police officers, their hard work and effort, and again, it's not the judge's fault. They're just simply applying the rules that are handed down to them. But we need tougher rules, no question, that especially for the repeat offenders who the surety system, the first go around, hasn't worked for them. Then why are they issuing sureties again for a second time, a third time, fourth time, fifth time? You talk to the Crown attorneys, that's what happens. And that's not a JP that is indifferent to our community. It's because that's the rules tell them to do that. And only the federal government has the power to change those rules. And MP Larry Brock told us, actually, the Justice Committee of Federal Parliament is going to be looking at this, and that's why this was speeded up, so that we're hoping that'll generate some public interest in this. But I want to assure members of the public, the task force is not just about this. This comes out of the safety and security subgroup. There's other subgroups that's looking at the what we can do to further invigorate the economic vitality of our downtown, sort of an economic development aspect, and Councillor Utley is quite involved in that. And then we do have another group that is concerned about what can we do to better help the needs of those who are vulnerable. So it's kind of a balanced approach. There'll be a report coming to us likely in the March cycle with a final set of recommendations. I look forward to that. But we felt it was very urgent, given the timing of what MP Larry Brock told us, that this comes forward and be passed at all possible. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wall, second time.
Thanks, Chair Martin. I'm thankful for an opportunity to speak again, because I gotta just go back to me, to every single human being who wakes up every day and goes out there into the world and says, I'm going to do good and make it a better place. Thank you. It's not easy. It's not easy. And to our frontline workers, to the police, to the teachers, to the paramedic, to everybody out there trying to fix this, what we're dealing with, thank you, because it's not easy. And I hope that in my previous comments, nobody feels like I was trying to blame anybody, because this isn't a one-person problem. This is a societal problem. And there are good people doing their best to fix it. And for them, I owe my eternal thanks.
Seeing nothing further, we'll call the vote on item 15.1. Sorry, 12.5.1.
So just to clarify, there was a comment regarding a friendly amendment to send it to the Police Service Board. This was in the omnibus motion, so it would be Councillor Sluss and Councillor Utley agreeing to that friendly amendment. I didn't see this head nod, so I just wanted to double check on, we can add that in and then proceed to the vote for 12.5.1. Mayor Davis.
It's a yes.
Item 12.5.1, closing the revolving door of justice resolution, has carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor: Councillor Sikoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Sluss, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Okay, Councillor Van Tilburg, you asked for 12.5.2 to be separated. Did you wish to defer to the mayor to allow him to speak first?
Let's do it again.
Okay, Mayor Davis, you have the floor.
Yeah, this is a component to what we just dealt with, sort of secondary to the primary motion or resolution, which we just dealt with. The province does have a role because the federal government sets the rules. The provincial, they appoint, it's the provincial government does administer the justice system. So they appoint the judges and they pay the clerks and they pay the crown prosecutors and they set prosecuting policies. And so what this is about is, again, a recommendation coming to us from MP Larry Brock, which would ask the province to do their part. And their part would be more vigorous enforcement against sureties that don't do their job and let us down. Essentially, that's what this is for. So I don't know, Madam Clerk, do you want to put this up in this? Actually, because these resolutions aren't being read, they've been put on the floor because of the omnibus, maybe for the viewing public. We just did that. This is the resolution for this. And so this is directed to the province in terms of their responsibilities. But again, the system is only as good as the rules, and the rules are the critical first step. And this is sort of the follow-up to make sure the rules are enforced. Like I said, they go hand in hand to resolutions. That's my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
So it says a lot there, but I think we'll just get to the public what it comes down to. If somebody's put on bail and they break the conditions of the bail, the steps are not there to collect the money from the person who provided what they call, I think, these sureties. I'm no lawyer, but I know this. If you're not having to pay bail and you don't have good intentions, you can take on a lot of bad people if you want, if you are a person of bad mind. There is no reason that we don't have a mechanism to collect the money of people that put up bail. That boggles my mind. I think we've all thought bail goes up, somebody breaks the conditions, money's collected from the person. You would think that would be one heck of a deterrent, and people might think twice about who they're standing up to for bail. I think that is just a basic fundamental of common sense. So it's expressed in this resolution that is not what's happening. I would look upon the streets, and it's probably very true that that is not what is happening. So if somebody is accused of something and they're put on bail, and they don't break their conditions and they go and they have their failed trial, they've been free, that's a good thing. They haven't done anything wrong. We don't have that. We have people that are breaking their conditions, and no way to have the person that said, I'm vouching for you, to be penalized for vouching for somebody that is, and breaking the conditions. The other part is, if you know somebody's going to break their conditions, you think, geez, you know what, I put up for bail, but now I don't think I can trust them. You can always go and ask for your money back, and then that person's no longer out on bail. They have to go somewhere else, like a cell, and hold until they can find somebody else that might want to front the money. So that's the second part. Yes, it is provincially driven. I can't understand how a province wouldn't be involved in wanting to collect revenues from people that are costing our system tons and tons of money, and our community a lot of grief. So that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if this is in the resolution or not, but I'm seeing a trend, and I'm sure other councillors are as well, of halfway houses going into very nice neighborhoods. And I can understand that, if we put them in this nice neighborhood, maybe they'll change their ways. But from what I'm hearing, it's the exact opposite. And the people that should be punished or helped to change their behavior, they're getting away with murder, while the people that live in the area are being punished by having their homes and their properties broken into, and that's not right. It just isn't right. If these people need help, let's put them in the right place, in the right areas. So I'm not, if that isn't included in the resolution, I would hope, I'd like to introduce an amendment, and I would hope that it's friendly.
Okay, can you clarify what your amendment would be?
That I'm not sure who makes the decision to open up buy homes and turn them into halfway houses. I would think that's probably a provincial responsibility. So I think I'd just like to see that the city approach the provincial government, or whatever government is undertaking this task, to review or cooperate, at least collaborate with the city on where these homes go. So I think that's got to change, because the people that have worked hard all their lives and maintain their properties deserve better than this.
Mayor, did you wish to comment on that, or?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I understand what Councillor Utley wants to do, but I just asked this, that the two resolutions you have on the floor before you, they came from people who know the system, Crown Attorney, a police chief, a couple other lawyers. I didn't profess to be an expert in it, but I had some knowledge of it. And I think the reason why these resolutions might be fairly effective is because they're based on the system as it is, and people who are in the system saying this is what specifically needs to change. And if we try and do that here on the fly, I'd be a little reluctant to see us do that. What I would undertake to do for you, Councillor Utley, since I sit on that subcommittee, I could bring it up to the subcommittee at our next meeting and get input from people like the police chief and the former Crown Attorney. What about this one? How does it fit in the system? Is this something you might want to comment on by virtue of another resolution directed to whomever it should be directed to? But I know what you're hearing. I hear what you're saying, which is halfway houses being located maybe where perhaps they are going to cause some havoc and mayhem.
Okay, Councillor Utley, I understand this is a very serious situation, but will the mayor's comments address the need?
Yes, they will, Mr. Chair, and thank you, and Mayor.
Yeah, and along with my comments about the Methadone Clinic, if you could take that to the next meeting, it'd be much appreciated. Councillor Carpenter, you have the floor.
Just a little concerned when we say good neighborhoods. I think the whole city is full of good neighborhoods, and I wouldn't want us to be suggesting that the halfway houses belong in this neighborhood as opposed to that neighborhood. You know, I don't like that way that sounds. I know that's not the intent, but I want to make sure the intent may be that city have some say in where they go, and I'm okay with that. But I'm not okay with saying, look, it can't go in this survey, but it can go in that survey, because they're, you know, maybe they're neighborhoods of houses with less value. I just would like to see, you know, I would like to make sure it's pretty clear that if we want to do something like that, we can do concentric circles or something, but we need to be fully clear and non-biased. Thank you.
Essentially, any neighborhood in Toronto would be good for one instead of a neighborhood in Brantford. Seeing nothing further on that, I'd just like to make one comment. If we start enforcing the laws on the sureties, the individuals that are getting someone to vouch for them and say that they will look after them, if the sureties start getting penalties and the penalties collected, then they'll be more reluctant to do that in the future. We might see some of these people not able to find a surety and be remaining in custody for that reason. So hopefully this will have some effect once it gets to the other level of government. And I suspect this one will be unanimous as well. So seeing no further questions, we'll call the vote.
Item 12.5.2, addressing the revolving door of justice, accountability for sureties and swift justice, has carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Sokoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll pass the chair back to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin, for doing that for me. So there are no other standalone resolutions tonight's agenda or urgent matters. So we'll move into notices of motion. We have two of them. Councillor Sless, if you would please read the title of your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, time limit exemption permit parking criteria.
Okay. And Councillor Utley, you have the next. Please read the title.
Mr. Mayor, urban road cross section for Weinarden Court.
And thank you, Madam Clerk, for putting the actual resolutions up. So thank you very much. That deals with notices of motion. So let's deal with bylaws, and we're going to test some of these separated for amendments and conflicts. But Councillor Sokoli, if you might, let's get this on the floor. If you can get it rolling by your first time of doing the motion for first and second reading of the bylaws, which means you got to read the whole thing. And but before you do that, state your seconder, please, before you launch into your.
I was going to say, I guess we're giving Councillor Antosky a bit of a break here. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Vanderstel. That leave be given to the mover and seconder to introduce the following bylaws for first and second reading. 1-2022 bylaw to declare and dedicate part of Block 5, Kerr Track, City of Brantford, being Part 2 on Reference Plan 2R-8149, City of Brantford, being part of the PIN 32079-1152 as part of the public highway to be known as Strickland Avenue. 2-2022 bylaw to amend bylaw 160-90, being a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and the location and use of buildings and structures in the city of Brantford. 3-2022 bylaw to declare and dedicate part lot 24 and 26, Plan 294 being Part 5 on 2R-8580, being part of PIN 32112-0054, City of Brantford, as part of the public highway to be known as Robinson Avenue. 4-2022 bylaw of the city of Brantford to review or relieve certain parts of lots or blocks from the provision of section 50 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. 5-2022, bylaw of the city of Brantford to relieve certain parts of lots or blocks from the provision of section 50 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. 6-2022, bylaw of the city of Brantford to relieve certain parts of lots or blocks from the provision of section 50 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. 7-2022, bylaw of the city of Brantford to relieve certain parts of lots or blocks from the provision of section 50 in the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. 8-2022, bylaw to authorize the John Noble Home Bell Court redevelopment project and to make provision for the financing of the foregoing. 9-2022, bylaw to authorize the updated accommodation strategy 2020 Earl Ave redevelopment project and to make provision for the financing of the foregoing. 10-2022, bylaw to amend bylaw number 58-2019 as previously amended. 11-2022, bylaw to amend bylaw 160-90, being a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and the location and use of buildings and structures in the city of Brantford by removing the holding provision from the subject lands. 12-2022, bylaw to amend chapter 326, business licensing of the city of Brantford Municipal Code to add schedule A-15 short-term rental accommodations. 13-2021, bylaw to amend bylaw 70-2010, being a bylaw to adopt various city of Brantford policies and to create a corporate policy manual by repealing Parks and Recreation Policy 10, Special Events Policy, and creating Community Services and Social Development Policy 001, Special Events Policy. 14-2022, bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford with respect to the meeting held on January 25th, 2022.
Well done, Councilor Scully. So now looking, I'll tell you in terms of dealing with them separately for discussion. We're going to deal separately with bylaw 2/2022. That's the one I declared a conflict on that 9 Lloyd Street. So we're going to deal with that separately. And I believe Councilor Wall will have an amendment to the short-term rental accommodations bylaw, but we'll deal with that at third reading. So does anybody want anything else separated at first or second reading for discussion purposes? Councilor McCurry.
Mayor, yes, bylaw number 10, please.
Bylaw 10. Okay. Councilor Well.
Sorry, just a question for the clerk's department. Yours is in there because of your conflict. Is the Oak Street conflict not a bylaw? I tried doing a search through them, but I couldn't find reference to it. Just don't want to,
I don't believe it is in there. I didn't see it either. No, it's not in there.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Davis. And then I'm supposed to move my amendment now?
No, we'll do that at third reading.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So first of all, I'll now call the vote on the first and second reading of all the bylaws that have been not separated for discussion purposes. First and second reading.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor, you really got to change that background picture. It's hard to see your hand.
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. Just want to make sure my conflict 12.1.7 is noted.
It's not bylaw, not in the bylaws. So the vote then on the first and second reading for those that have been separated.
first and second reading of all bylaws not separated for discussion purposes have carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Secoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
All right, Councilor Martin, can you share first, second reading about that bylaw 222?
Any questions or comments on bylaw 2, 2022? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
The first and second reading for bylaw 2-2022 is carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilor Secoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, noting Mayor Davis conflict.
And Mayor Davis, you have the chair.
Thank you. Councilor McCurry, bylaw 10, 2022.
Mayor, thank you very much. This is a bylaw which authorizes the police service headquarters redevelopment project and makes provision for financing of same. I'm wondering if the CAO is on the call tonight.
Yep, there he is.
Mr. Hutchings, we have a bit of an odd duck here in terms of a project that's paid for by City of Brantford, but apparently being designed by PSB, sorry, by senior police staff. Do we have a plan to implement a steering committee to gain some governance that includes elected representatives to drive that project forward?
At this point in time, no, Councilor McCurry. What we have right now is the architects have gone out. They've met with, as you mentioned, senior staff at the police, as well as the police, various members of the police force to design the building. We have now met with the police chief and the deputy chief, myself and GM Hans, who has the capital portfolio, to talk about a governance structure with them. And what that would look like. We met with them last Wednesday, and we're working that through, and how the governance of this capital project will move forward.
Are you going to need direction from this council and the Police Services Board to create a steering committee?
Councilor, if I can through you, Mr. Mayor, what I was trying to do with the chief and the deputy was to make suggestions on governance and bring that forth as a report to council. I can go either way. I can either recommend it up after we talk to the deputy and the chief, or it can be recommended down to staff. But I probably would advise that I was trying to do it with their senior staff, but if it doesn't work out, then I can bring that resolution to council to make that happen.
Okay. I will remind those sitting around the table tonight of the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center. And that was the plan of action that we implemented, but the horse was out of the barn and all that was left was the straw. I'm thinking of a project that Councillor Carpenter and Councillor Utley and I participated in with respect to an oversight committee for the Walter Gretzky golf course, which was most effective. And of course, Councillor Martin and I both participated in as chairing the steering committee for the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center. So, Mr. Hutchings, perhaps you and I could have a chat offline about this. I think at the very least, we should have Police Services Board reps and perhaps a member of council that's not a PSB appointee steering this project along with senior staff from both organizations. Now, with respect to the bylaw before us tonight, does that commit us to the project that has henceforth been identified with respect to building on the existing site? Or does it prohibit us looking at alternate sites?
From my read of the bylaw, Mr. Mayor, it does not prohibit us from looking at other sites. However, I'm just looking as we speak, Councillor, and it doesn't prohibit, but if council was so to want to defer this, I don't think they could defer it to next month, so I can give you an accurate response, so I can actually read through this exactly rather than making an erroneous comment to you, Counselor. I don't think there's any, to be corrected by my treasurer, but I don't think there's any time constraints. This we can bring it back next month if the council so wishes.
Seeing no commentary from your treasurer, Mayor, I would like to defer. Oh, there's Joelle. Joelle, do you have a comment?
Sorry, if Brian, just to add to what Brian was saying, if we defer a month, we just need to be careful because it is debenture finance. We do need to have a bylaw in place prior to expenditures being incurred. So deferring a month is fine as long as there's not an immediate need to start incurring expenditures.
Oh, that's super. Thank you, Joelle. So Mayor, I will move that we defer this to the February council.
So you're moving a deferral of bylaw 10/2022 to the February council meeting. Is there a seconder to defer this at first and second read? Councilor Van Tilburg seconding that. And so only debate is time and place. So it's going to raise hands on that. So Madam Clerk, if you please take the vote on the motion to defer 10/2022.
The deferral for bylaw 10-2022 has carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Sicoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, while Mayor Davis.
Okay, so I think that we completed first and second reading. Councilor Van Tilburg, understanding of the resolution for third reading.
Moved by myself, seeking a seconder. I'll take Councillor Wall. That bylaw 120-22 through to and including bylaw 14/2022 be taken and read as a third time and be finally passed and signed by the mayor and clerk.
And that would not include bylaw 10/2022, because that was just deferred. All right, so does anybody want well, we need bylaw 2/2022 separated because of my conflicts. And Councillor Wall, understand you want one of them separated for an amendment. And which one is that you want separated for that?
Yes, through you. Moved by myself, seeking a seconder.
Or you just need to say you want to deal with something separated. We're just dealing with which one.
Oh,
Which one do you want separated?
That's okay. Yes, separating bylaw 12.
Yeah, 12. It's 12/2022.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so does anybody else want any of the other bylaws separated at third reading? So not seeing any raised hands. So I'll call the vote on third reading for those items that have not been separated, which is the other bylaws, not including bylaw 10.
The third reading of all bylaws not separated for discussion purposes have carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Sicoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, while Mayor Davis.
All right, and Councillor Martin, would you please be good enough to take over for bylaw 2/2022 third reading because of my conflict?
Okay, any questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
The third reading of bylaw 2/2022 has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Sicoli, Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, while noting Mayor Davis' conflict.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll deal with the last remaining item, which is bylaw 12/2022. And Councillor Wall, if you would put your amendment on the floor, please.
Before I do, can I ask a question to staff?
Yep, you can ask a question.
Excellent. Regarding my amendment, could I have somebody just comment on what it's going to do?
Well, first of all, can you please put it on the floor, and then I think it'd be appropriate to ask staff.
Sure. Okay. Moved by myself, seeking a seconder. Councilor McCreary, thank you. Third reading amendment that bylaw 12/2022 be amended by striking section 5, clause D to remove the licensing parking requirement.
All right. And so you have I take your question then as a staff that you just raised, which is essentially why.
Hi, Councilor Wall, through the chair. So essentially what this amendment will be doing is staff have received 2 sets of direction through council. We received 1 set back in March through the clerk's report regarding the short-term rental accommodation, and then we received a second set of directions through the planning report. And what they are both pertaining to the parking. The clerk's report basically strengthens the zoning parking, giving the primary residence driveway must be able to accommodate a vehicle per bedroom rented, whereas the planning report was recommending doing a tiered approach that would align with the zoning bylaw. So clerks have drafted the schedule, including the amendment and the direction that we were given back in March. But we are recommending removing that and going with what planning recommends and doing the tiered approach where the parking is in line with the zoning bylaw. So that's what the amendment would be doing.
So just continue to speak to that. Basically what I took from that is it's just some housekeeping. Staff have been given 2 different directions and we have to pick a direction, and this is the direction that the planning department is recommending. And I'm moving this amendment so that we can align with what the planning department would like to see us do.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you, Emma. And thank you, Mayor Davis.
Councillor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering if we can get some clarification as to why the recommendation of one over the other. I suspect it's going to be the alignment with the bylaws, but is with the zoning bylaw. Is there any other reason that this is being recommended as the way to go?
Through the chair to Councillor Antosky. So if we were to keep the amendment in, it would actually be giving an increased parking regulation, and given enforcement and compliance with licensing, it would be difficult with the 2 sets. So yes, it's just aligning with the zoning bylaw.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
If someone could explain how it gives extra parking, because I'm believing that the parking is the same as what a residence is, the single residence, and that was the idea, so that they didn't have 5 extra cars coming to a party at a B&B.
Through the chairs to Councillor Van Tilburg. So the zoning parking would be the tiered approach. So if it was only a bachelor apartment, then you would only be required to have 1. And then if you have more bedrooms, it would be the tiered approach, which I believe I'd have to look at the report, or
Right.
Maybe I could.
Yeah, do
tag
we have
in.
somebody, sorry,
Yep.
Emma, do we have somebody from planning that can, there's Joe. Joe, can you tell us exactly?
Good evening, Mayor Davis, members of council. Ms. Volks is correct. Her response was correct.
Well, that's great, Joe, because I'm still confused. What's the difference in the number of cars for what we had? Where is it? Council came up with what we thought was a safe way to move forward on this. So we just want to know, what is the difference in the number of cars? What was wrong with what council had come with from the report that we had agreed upon?
Sorry, Madam Clerk, were you going to step in there with the comment?
The only thing I was going to say through the Mayor Davis to the councillor is there's nothing wrong with the two different approaches, but what could happen is you have confusion to the applicants. So the licensing requirement has a parking space for every bedroom rented. So if you have a home that's going to have 4 bedrooms rented, but it's for a family use, even the children's bedroom would require a parking space. Whereas the planning's zoning requirement is a tiered approach that was approved by council and was within your zoning bylaw. So that's where staff landed with 2 sets of direction.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Councillor Carpenter.
Yes, can staff please explain the tiered approach now? We keep saying tiered approach, but we're not giving the definition out to the public.
Through the mayor to Councillor Carpenter. So the bylaw that was approved, the zoning bylaw that was approved by council was identified as all short-term accommodations with up to 3 bedrooms per unit. The primary residential use parking requirements would apply. And if there was 4 or more bedrooms per unit, 1 additional parking space per bedroom would be required. That is what has been approved in the zoning bylaw.
So that requirement then is, if I recall, 2.5 cars, really, isn't it? 1.5 cars for residential zoning, and then you're going to add 1 if it's a 4th bedroom?
Correct.
So it's 2 cars. 2.5, I guess. Would that be correct? We're going to?
Through the mayor to the councillor. So once again, if it's a typical 3-bedroom dwelling that's being rented out for an Airbnb, short-term accommodation, if you will, you would rely on the parent zoning requirement for that parking. So you're correct. If the zone allows for example, it's actually 1 parking space per dwelling, and if you went beyond that, you would be adding a parking space for each bedroom.
Oh, for each bedroom. So if someone rented out 3 bedrooms out of a 3-bedroom house individually, each room rented out, that would require 3 cars?
Through the mayor to councillor, no. It would require 1 car with under 3 bedrooms, and for every bedroom beyond the 3rd, so if you go 4th or a 5th, so if they're carved out multiple rooms in this house, an additional parking space would be required for those additional rooms.
Beyond the 3?
Correct.
Yeah, I just want to get clear, because what we're saying is that, if it's a 3-bedroom unit, then we can, and you rent it out, each room rented out, you still only require 1 car. If it's 4-bedroom house, you rent all 4 bedrooms out, you require 2 cars. So that will create cars on the street. Just want to, if in that scenario. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe, so if I can just confirm the way this, you're saying the way this came up earlier this month, so the 3-bedroom under, if we don't amend it, then short-term rental, if you had a 3-bedroom, you'd need 3 parking spots. Is that correct?
So once again, when we're talking to the mayor, when we're talking about this tiered approach, we're basically
No,
saying,
not about the tiered, because you're saying the way we've done it now, before the amendment is it wouldn't be tiered or be confusing, was it tiered or not? But the way the short-term rental accommodation report moved forward, it would be 3 cars. Is that right? 3 parking spots for 3 bedrooms.
Through the mayor, I could step in just for the licensing portion. You'd have both. So you'd end up with the regulations that are within zoning, and you would end up with the licensing regulations. So this is where we're trying to ask council, do you want 1 set of regulations that are within your zoning, which have already tested through the appeal process as far as receiving no appeals, or do you want to land both and include the licensing, which was direction from back in March of 2021?
All right, so I think there's a bit of confusion. So if we do not do the amendment, what happens if there's a 3-bedroom short-term rental?
From the licensing's perspective, it would require 3 bedrooms or 3 parking spots.
Okay. Okay, Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you. We have a history of making some pretty serious decisions on the fly and quite often we end up revisiting same. Is there a reason why this needs to be concluded this evening?
Through the mayor to the councillor, this parking regulation was added to licensing as an amendment on the floor to when the debate was happening in March. And now that you've had your zoning process come through, we're at the stage now where we need to launch the registration process, but we have two different sets of parking regulations. So in order to launch and start the education program and then the marriage into compliance, we need to know what we're telling the applicants. So
is there a deadline of January 31st for us to do this?
Through to the councillor, no, our licensing program runs typically from April 1st to March 31st of a year. So we were provided direction that once the zoning appeal process had ended to present this bylaw, which is why it's before you tonight. We're trying to align with that program launch in our deadlines for the April 1st in our annual licensing, but there's no hard and fast deadline. So if you wanted to defer this, you certainly could.
Mayor, I'm going to move that we defer this to next month and that we receive a more comprehensive report from staff to allow us to make a decision that's appropriate.
Okay, so you're referring this to the, I think Councillor Wall, you're seconding that. So it's a deferral to the February council meeting for third reading.
Yes,
and
with a
possible-
report to be provided perhaps at committee of the whole.
All right, and so the deferral is both obviously the underlying bylaw and the amendment. Like it's a package.
Correct.
Right, okay. So I'll call the vote on that, a deferral to the end of February.
So just to clarify, I believe you want a report, it would actually be a referral. So you want to refer this back to staff to present you with a report at the COW February cycle and then re-present the bylaw at the end of February cycle.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so the referral is what, Madam Clerk? So you're suggesting it's a referral to the next cycle?
Through the mayor. So yeah, so this would be a referral to ask staff to present a report at the COW February cycle, and then we would bring back the bylaw at that time. But since there's no report, because this is a report from March, it's just the bylaw before you tonight. So referral would actually create a new report for you for February cycle.
Okay. All right, so call the vote on that. Well, we can debate a referral and discussion on that. Seeing none, call the vote on the referral.
My apologies. I was just doing a head check count. I do believe that Councillor Vanderstelp is not present anymore. With the screen shuffle, I just wanted to take a moment to double check. So my apologies in the delay. The referral has carried on a recorded vote of 9-1. Those voting in favor, Councillors Sicoli, Utley, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councillor Carpenter.
I think that's completed the third reading of the bylaws. So before I call the meeting adjourned, I'm going to have to sign the bylaws. So we'll go around the table. And so I'm just going to go around based on the gallery views it appears for me. So that means Councillor Utley, you go first. Board announcements.
Sorry, Mayor, was that me?
So that's the award announcements.
Okay.
We're starting
Thank
with
you.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's the Homedale and Neighborhood meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. by Zoom. I want to thank everybody for all those that took their cars off the road during last week's major snowstorm. It really does help our crews, and the more we can do that, the more we can help our crews clear the roads. It cuts costs, and their job is made easier to clear your streets. And then lastly, Earth Week is in April, and Earth Day is April the 22nd. I'm saying that now because it gives you plenty of time to plan your neighborhood cleanup, and any groups, scouts, guides that want to participate, service clubs, let's clean our city up and our neighbors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you. I don't have anything I wish to elaborate on at this time.
Councilor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. I guess the first one is I think that the major snowstorm kind of showed a weakness in our system, and it wasn't our staff. It's the contractors that do the windrow program. They were they weren't following very closely behind our plows, and unfortunately, what would happen is that the street would get plowed, but the seniors' windrow wouldn't leave for a couple of days. And if they couldn't find someone to get it out and they had to get out, they were in big trouble. So I would ask that that we maybe take a look at that. Maybe staff can to get these independent pickup trucks with the plows on them, cleaning off windrows, to be following in behind. So these things get done simultaneously, that they're not waiting a couple days to get the end of their driveway made accessible, because right now that's not working. We're paying for a program, and the program's just not working. I had a number of calls and I drove around to make sure, and yes, they hadn't been touched. And this was a couple days after the street had been plowed. So they're not following closely enough behind our plows. On a positive note, the Myrtleville Mayfair Neighborhood Association is giving learn to skate lessons at Angood Park on Saturday from 1:15 to 2:15. They did it last week, and it was incredibly successful, and so they're doing it again this week. They do it very COVID responsibly, but they've got a ton of little kids out there that are learning to skate, and it's a great thing, because these kids they're kind of hurting with everything that's gone on with isolation and whatnot, and to get them out on the ice and get them running around and having fun with other kids in a safe way, it's a good thing. So if you've got a young one that needs to learn to skate, Angood Park 1:15 on Saturday, and you'll get a shot at getting on the ice and getting a chance to learn a little bit how to skate. Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor McCrory.
Mayor, thank you. I'd like to elaborate on Councilor Utley's commentary earlier about snow. There's an obligation by residents and building owners to clear the snow within about 24 hours after it falls from municipal sidewalks, until the corporation of the city of Brantford undertakes a program to actually do that work on your behalf and increase your taxes to pay for it. Similarly, there's a real need to get your cars off the road. So residents should be advised that if you're coming upon sidewalks that remain dangerous at this point in time, or if there are vehicles that have been parked for a week in a spot, call the customer service department or your counselor and recommend that we deal with those issues so that we can make our community safer and more negotiable for vehicles on narrow streets.
Councilor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing new to add. Thank you.
Councilor Carpenter, you're next.
Thank you. Just thank you for Councilor Sluss for raising the windrow concern. And I think that's attached to our policy, our 24-hour policy of clear on the roads would have ended at 3 o'clock the next day. And the windrow program didn't start till 8 p.m. So it may be policy, but I'd like to also follow up on that and suggest that we make sure that the contractor isn't getting paid for a windrow that the neighbor cleaned. Because I saw a lot of great people out there. In fact, I did a couple myself. But a lot of people out there cleaning their neighbor's windrow out when it should have been cleaned by the contractor. I just don't want the contractor driving by and ticking a box and getting paid for windrow clean out that a good neighbor did. I want to make sure that that's rectified in a way. And I thought Councilor Antosky would talk about we had our follow-up meeting, which was well attended and very successful. Again, the residents were very helpful. I believe we had 68, Councilor Antosky will correct me, actually registered, and many, many more watching, and then many more to watch it following. It's been very successful formula. The mayor the mayor attended that meeting. So did Councilor Martin on behalf of the Police Services Board. I appreciate that, and they can attest that the staff may want to consider this model. It does take some staff resources and of course council resources to deliver the 3,000 flyers that are required to make the public aware. This might be a good process when we have our virtual meetings for bringing the community in. I haven't seen that many people involved in a meeting, even when we were before COVID, and we actually had them in the wards. So just a good process. And going forward, I want to remind everybody the Eastward Echo Place Neighborhood Association, which is a great organization. They do tremendous work. They're very active, small group, but they do tremendous amount of work. But they both have Iroquois and Charlie Ward Park. They're available for skating. They're available for skating now. Anybody who wants to help out, that would be great. And if you want to, if you know you've got your young person in your house that would like to maybe help out a neighbor, would like to get into our Snow Buddies program, there are a lot of seniors out there that were looking for someone to partner with to clean their snow. They're willing to pay a few bucks, but you can register to the city Snow Buddy program. It's a great program, and I know there's lots of active kids. I saw quite a few this time, and I hadn't seen before, going down the streets with shovels. Young kids, I'm bragging because a couple of my grandsons did the same thing. They're thrilled to earn a few bucks just cleaning out people's driveways and sidewalks. The community is there, and in a snowstorm is when you really find out who your neighbors really are. And we really had a tremendous amount of fantastic people out there reaching out, helping the neighbors, seeing if they needed anything. Those that were stuck in driveways, going to the grocery store for them. We really have a tremendous community when it comes to that. Like the neighborhoods are one piece at a time. I call them mayors on the street. There's someone that knows everybody on the street, and they make sure everybody gets taken care of. I just want to thank them publicly for the great work they did. Thank you.
Councilor Carpenter or Councilor Wall, you're next.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilor Carpenter, for what you just said, because it was overwhelming the amount of people who helped other people in this community out during the snowstorm, and they are all heroes. You are all magnificent people. Thank you so much for restoring our faith in humanity. That was great. Come one, come all. The Eagle Place Eastward Neighborhood Association are having a neighborhood meeting. Come meet celebrities such as Mayor Kevin Davis, Chief Robert Davis, myself, perhaps other local members, Mandy Samwell, Paul McDougall. It's going to be great people. We're going to be talking about safety and security and traffic in Eastward in Eagle Place. It's Tuesday, February 15th. We hope you will come out. We want to hear what you have to say. And I got to give a huge shout out to Councilor Antosky and Carpenter, who helped build the model that we are going to be using at this neighborhood meeting. Apparently, everybody loved the way you guys did it, and now we have huge shoes to fill. Next, I would really like to give a huge shout out to Coldest Night of the Year, which is happening on February 26, 2022 for Why Not Youth Center. Normally that event is just unbelievably well attended and they raise a ton of money, but as of now, they've only raised 11% of their $50,000 goal, $5,700 raised. If you can put together a team or contribute a donation, Why Not Youth Center is just one of those incredible organizations and community who's making a huge difference in our community. I know it's very likely the Wellington Squares will be there. That is your city council team. I know that I'll be there, and a lot of people I know and love and respect are going to be there. It's the coldest night of the year, February 26, 2022. And you can get more information on that at cnoy.org. And I think I would just want to, forgive me, but I want to echo what Councilor Carpenter said. This city has such a spectacular group of neighborhood associations, which you literally Google neighborhood associations, Brantford, you'll go right to the city of Brantford's directory, which lists all the neighborhood associations. They are looking for volunteers to host programs. They are looking for people to participate in meetings. They are looking for people to flood rinks. You don't have to go every week. You don't have to go every month. You can go once a year. But if you want to make an impact in your community, do it through the neighborhood associations, because you get great people like Councilor Antosky who come through those neighborhood associations. Anyway, I'm saying stuff everyone said before. I love you all. I'll see you next week.
Councilor Scully.
I don't know how to follow that energy, but in keeping with the theme of the night, I do want to thank the Shellard Neighborhood Association. And this might be deja vu from Councilor Sless, but they put on an amazing Learn to Skate event this weekend. I went and checked it out, and it was such an impressive operation. It was so well received that they are hosting another event this coming Saturday. So do check out their Facebook page. And that is located on the ice rink that is maintained and put on by the volunteers of, again, the Shellard Neighborhood Association at Donegal Park. So a huge thank you to Rob and Barb and all of the volunteers who worked so hard to go down there and plow those rinks so that all the little kiddies in the community can enjoy some outdoor fun. And that's everything. Thanks.
All right, so I think that wraps it up.
Mayor, may I jump back in for a second?
It's highly irregular, Councillor McCurry. You've had your shot.
You did have
Because
more
I'm
than
such
one
a
speaking
compassionate-
opportunity tonight. I just wanted to say, Mayor, that Councillor Martin and I were successful as your police service board delegates in creating an initiative to have a community-wide dialogue on policing priorities. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to host our public hearing on that issue sometime in the first half of February. And we'll provide more details as we get closer to the date.
Okay, with that, adjourned.